When I was very young, I started using dramatically.
What was the first thing you got dragged into? Was it the gambling and sex addiction?
The reality, the first thing, if I do memory of myself, was pornography, so sex addiction. I was very, very ashamed of myself. I'm still not proud now of what I did. Some of the things were very undignifying, but I accept them now. I'm here. This is what I have. This is my reality. This is where I have to start working. And that healed me. So I think it heals everyone finally. What I came to understand, and it's still struggle because I still struggle with this particular thing in my life, is that you react the way you can. And I just reacted the way I could at the time.
Welcome to the Living a Life in Balance podcast. My name is Abdullah Boulad. I'm the founder and CEO of the Balance Rehab Clinic. My guest today is Jacobo Rengifo, a behavioral addiction specialist and relapse prevention expert whose journey began with his own personal recovery. In this episode, Jacobo opens up about his story from growing up across countries to the loss of his sister and the years navigating addiction and resistance to treatment. We explore what recovery truly looks like and how Jacobo rebuilt his life from the inside out. He shares unique insights into the dopamine system, the science of relapse, and some of the most common misconceptions about addiction, including why it's not about quantity, but about your relationship to the substance or behavior. This is an honest conversation about what it takes to return to yourself and how change becomes possible when we start facing the truth and trust those around us. I hope you will enjoy. Jacobo, what motivated you to do what you do today?
Well, it's been a long story. It's been several years already where I started doing what I do now. But it all comes from my personal story, from where I was and what I had to do to be in a different place. When I was very young, I started using dramatically. It was a situation that was very difficult because I had to hide it from my family, from everyone that was around me. So I was alone. I was alone in a dramatic situation I didn't know how to handle, and using, and it started to cover every aspect of my life. I didn't want to seek for help. I didn't know how to seek for help. I really didn't know what was happening with me. I thought I was cursed or something like that. And finally the situation developed, and there was no place to hide anymore because, of course, my family, my mother was starting to see that I was in a very bad shape, and I wasn't able to do many of the things that, ordinary people maybe can do during the day. Well, wake up, do your bed, go to university, college, or wherever you have to go, work. And that was just, I was incapable of doing that. So they came to me and they said, we know you have a problem. We don't know exactly what it is, but we feel you need to reach us. I wasn't able at the time to reach them. It took another 2 or 3 years where I started doing things like taking family money to use to gamble. That was my main addiction, gambling. A very behavioral addiction, as well as sex. I also used other things, but when I look back in where I was, I think that's the most traumatic things I did were related to gambling. So money started to drown. They started to see because money is not infinite. And there was a moment where they were between going to the police to see where the scam was, or me stepping up and saying, this is me, that's gambling. It's not a scam. It's not that you're being robbed. It's that your own son is using the family money to gamble.
How old have you been when everything has started?
There's a bit of a blur. I know I was between 16 and 17.
Wow.
It was very young. It was my end of high school. That's when I started. Then I had a huge trigger that just made the things go faster and faster and were worse and worse. And it was my sister that she committed suicide when I was
Wow.
graduating, the same day I graduated from school. Uh, and then the next 5 years, I was just using and gambling and in very bad places all the time. There wasn't a time where I thought, well, maybe I can have a normal life. I knew it wasn't going to happen. I knew the problem I had. I just didn't want to recognize it or didn't know how to do so.
I'm very sorry to hear about your sister. Um,
Thank you.
was this for you a catalyst to get better, or did it drag you down further in your situation?
In my personal situation, it dragged me down completely. I wasn't able to do the grieving at the time. I wasn't able to accept the reality that we were in. And everyone in my family had different ways to cope with it. My addiction was already started. It doesn't mean that the situation, I reacted to it, but I was already in addiction, in active addiction. And this just was a catalyzer to finish myself in not finding anything else to do. So addiction was present, I don't say 24 hours because it would be a bit exaggerated, but in most of the decisions and the things I did, it was present for the next 5 years.
Was the addiction the main issue you had, or was there something underlying to it?
There finally, when you recover, you see if there's something else. No, that's the huge thing to it. I was in a very depressive state as well, so depression was a big thing. I couldn't wake up. I was always sleeping. I even slept in college classes, inside the class with 40 or 50 people, and I was there sleeping. So I was a grown up. I was an adult going to college, but I wasn't able to follow a class entirely. So yes, there was a depression underlying, a depression that hasn't disappeared completely after recovering from addiction. So every 3, 4 years, I have a little episode of maybe 3, 4 weeks that I have to take care of myself a lot. I have to slow down a bit because it's cycle depression. That's what psychiatrist told me once, and I think because if you see the timeline, every 4 years, more or less, I have an episode of. It's not that heavy as before because when you're in active addiction, everything is much more in general. But I do have to control that, and I think it would be there for the rest of my life. I don't know. We hope not, but we never know.
You can observe and you realize what it is, and you can address it, or you can take it slower to cope with it.
It's much different when you have the tools. Everything in mental health for me is different if you have some tools to take care of it. So of course it's not a month or 15, 20 days that I have that I'm in a good shape. So it's better not to do many things, but I know where I am. I know what I have to do. I do it. It goes pretty fast, and then I can go on with my life.
When we go back when you were like the 16, 17, so where everything has started for you, what was the first thing you got dragged into? Was it the gambling and sex addiction?
The reality, the first thing, if I do memory of myself, was pornography. So sex addiction. Because that started with 11 years, I
Wow.
think. I found myself in situations that it's difficult now to remember because it's been a while.
Yeah.
But in situations when I couldn't stop, I went out of school, I took my computer and I started watching pornography and doing whatever I had to do. And I couldn't stop. And I even found myself in situations where there was even people around me. And I had to look at the computer compulsively. because that was a way to avoid my own emotions. And that's the first catalyst I found when I was only 11 years. I was very emotional. I've been always very emotional person. And and that's where, well, teenage starts. You start to see reality, that you're just another person, another number. Emotions come in, the limbic system comes in, and you don't know how to manage it. And that's normally, if you do a very big history in addicts, they normally start when they're quite young, quite younger than what they think afterwards.
Often we hear that the childhood is also very significant when it comes to addiction or later on any behavioral issues. How was it in your case? How did you grow up?
I grew up in a very safe family, a very loving family. I had, well, my father is a diplomat, so we went all around the world, living in Ivory Coast, Morocco, where I was born, the States, and we had almost everything. No real issues. Of course, I had a father. Or I have a father. Now we have a really good relationship. But he was strict, severe, very demanding. It's true that there's a lot of studies that prove that childhood is something very related to addiction. I also think that genes are involved. So I come from a family that has a lot of addiction. So my thought about it is that whatever happened in my life, I was going to end up with this problem. Even if the circumstances had changed, I have a strong genetic bias that drives me to addiction. I have a lot of uncles, cousins that have this problem and that deal with it the way they can.
And addiction can manifest in different ways, like on a behavioral side or going
Yes.
into substance.
Yes.
Is there a difference between behavioral addiction side and the substance addiction and what it makes to your brain or to your emotions?
To the brain, of course, like there's a total difference of every drug triggers in a different way. What neuroscientists have seen, I'm not an expert in this, but they've seen that the neuronal circuits that you're using in the reward system are more or less a high percentage coincidence. So it means that behavioral addiction or or substance addiction, they go a bit by the same path. Not the same one exactly, but they are in the same system, dopaminergic system and reward system. So there is a difference because normally also environment influences. I know I went to gambling because I was in a very gambling family. So they play a lot of cards. Also, I've seen that some in my environment, they were more in alcohol because also we come from a family that, well, the use of alcohol is something social and very welcomed, and everybody does it on a normal basis. So I think that is also something to the person, depending on how they are and what their essence, their personality traits, they're going to use one thing or the other.
I can imagine if you start with the age of 11, at the age of 11 in a type of a behavioral addiction, is this kind of an enabler to use more, to do more, and you get easier dragged into substances or harder substances and behavioral?
I had a lot of limits to myself. That's very interesting because I was really afraid of drugs. That sounds a bit contradictory, but it is like that. I was afraid. I knew I had a very addictive personality, so I was afraid of more complicated drugs in the mentality of the people, like cocaine or others. But it's true that you start losing limits. So you start crossing some lines, and those lines are crossed. So going back to that line is not as difficult as it was before. So of course, there's a progression to it. And what you thought you were never going to do, you kind of do it afterwards at the end. And it happens. So I crossed a lot of lines that are not in my values, that I've never thought I would have crossed, and that for sure are not in my essence as a person.
Yes.
But I had to. It was survival, finally.
What did the substance or the behavioral side give to you?
We have to understand the value for the addict.
Mm-hmm.
And the value is that you don't have to cross some unpleasant emotions. You have very little tolerance to pain, to frustration, to sadness, and to other emotions that are maybe on the more not pleasant side of what we feel. And using finally it gets you out of that reality. You don't have to cross it. You just have to. It's like a short path. You just use and you forget.
Mm-hmm.
You forget about what was happening, what was your anger, your rage, your vulnerability also. So that is the value of addiction. You just forget
Mm-hmm.
your reality and you don't have to cope with it. And there's a huge value to it. That's why we have so much prevalence today.
In your case, was it to a lack of emotional regulation, or is it in every case combined with addiction?
There's a lot. The universe of addiction is very broad, so defining it, it's a bit difficult, but the reality is we see two axes that are more or less. One is disconnection. So mine was more disconnection. So I disconnected my rational part from my limbic side. So I didn't have to acknowledge what I was feeling. It's like having a bit of a psychopathology. So you're like a big, like a psychopath. You just don't connect with the suffering of others, with what you're doing and what pain it could be causing, and you don't connect with yours as well. And that's a value also to it. There's other profiles that are more in the trying to get more emotions and experience. So a bit of a sparkle to life. Like life is not enough, so I need more and more. Well, there's a moment that more is not possible by natural basis. So you have to find other things that give you that triggers the brain into higher quantities of dopamine.
More of what? More of pleasure, more of connection?
I think it's experiences as well. So it's like you want to have, yeah, more. It means having a more intense, what we feel is more intense life.
Because you feel numb?
Yes, a bit, a bit. You feel numb, and normal situations in life, like seeing a sunset, for example. Seeing a sunset and here in the island is something beautiful, and everyone can enjoy it. An addict starts seeing that sunset starts losing value to him because the dopamine system is blocked and it affects to other systems as well. So he doesn't value the sunset as much as the person that's sitting next to him. And there's a very complicated reality where you see that you should be valuing something that you don't value and others value, so you don't feel bonded to them because you don't see reality as they do. And you want to search for more. If a sunset is not enough, then I have to be in a boat, for example, seeing the sunset. If it's not enough, then I have to be in a very nice place around the globe. And if that's not enough, then what? And with the more question, there's nothing enough. If you always want more, you never have enough.
When you mentioned gambling addiction, I mean, this clearly, you as a person at that age, you may have a limited amount of capital.
Yes.
So what was then the next step to go to?
Well, stealing, finally. Well, it was stealing to my own family.
Yes.
So I wasn't stealing outside. I was stealing inside my house. So it's a very difficult thing to realize. So you're taking money from your family. There was a lot of cash in my house in that time. I don't know exactly why. So yeah, well, a little bit by here, a little bit by there. They didn't notice for almost 3 years. The first one to notice was my mother. She realized that it didn't make sense, but I was just excusing myself, so justifying. I said it wasn't me. I was quite clever as well, so I was able to manipulate in a very strong way. So my mother started to think that she was the one that had the problem, because I started putting the problem inside her instead of seeing my own problem. And that came to a very bad place where my own mother had to be, well, with a psychiatrist, with a doctor, seeing a psychotherapist, because she thought she was wrong. And the only thing that was wrong was my addiction. Not even me. I wasn't wrong as well, but my addiction was the problem inside the house that no one wanted to see, and for sure I didn't want to show.
And how did they, at the end, figure it out or realized that you have a problem?
My impression is they knew already, but there was a situation that triggered my recovery. It was maybe like 20,000 euros in my house in cash from something, a jewelry or something they sold. And the first day I started taking 1,000. I went gamble and using and came back with nothing. And I said, okay, you take another 1,000, you go back, you win 2,000, you give it back. So I took another 1,000, and then, well, I lost them again. And for this happened for maybe 1 week. What's more, and this can explain a bit also how addiction works and how we lose dignity on the process. I went by car, and I left it in the parking lot in Madrid, in the center of Madrid. And it was a very expensive parking lot because it's in Gran Via, in the main street. When I went by bus the next day, or by taxi, I couldn't pay for the parking lot because I lost all my money. So I have to go back to my house by bus, take more money for the next day, go back, gamble it again and lose it, do not pay the parking lot, go back to my house. That happened for a week until I spent the 20,000 euros, and my car was still in the parking lot. So then we had another 300 euro debt for the parking lot I've been using for 1 week without being able to take the car out. My mother had to pay for it because I had no money.
Right.
So they said, well, let's go to the police. 20,000 euros, it's a crime, finally. You can go to jail. It's a big theft. So I was cornered. I couldn't do anything but say what was happening. And that's when recovery started, that same day.
By that time, you also started using other substances.
I used a lot of alcohol, a lot of marijuana as well, very little cocaine. I wasn't more into that type. That was because I was afraid of losing myself in the process. But the most suffering part, a part of the addiction itself, was the thoughts you had about yourself. No, how could I get out of that situation? So I had a lot of suicidal ideation. I never had any attempt, but I went into a train to college, and every day I thought, let's jump. Maybe this can finish. I never did anything about it. But yeah, 4 years going to college in the same train with the same thoughts. For me, that was the real suffering. The time and the thoughts, the way my mind was.
I just think like you grew up in a caring family.
I did.
Of course, you could say there is a family history of addiction, and you're in this situation because of that. Maybe partly true, partly limited. But how was your more extended environment, friends or extended family? How was your social network at that time?
I wasn't good relating with people at the time, at least when I started. I went to a school where I had a bit of bullying. And that happened more or less, yes, when I started with pornography. That probably was a way to avoid that type of situation. So to forget again. And yes, I didn't I didn't do many friends. I was also a very strong personality, so I didn't manage to adapt any of my to the way things were working. I was always in my stubborn place where I wanted to dress in a way where the school didn't dress that way. So I was a bit stubborn. That didn't help me. And at the time, yes, I managed it difficult to do relationships. I'm a very social person, but those 2 years were difficult to me. Then, of course, my mother and father decided to take me out from there. Then it got a bit better afterwards. But I did have a bit of a traumatic situation with that school at the time.
What was the breaking point for you?
It wasn't when this happened, when the recovery started. Because I wasn't there. My family was there, the situation was there, but I wasn't there. Like if it was for me, I would have continued using. It was just circumstances that led me to, I have to recover. I have no other option.
So you knew you needed to recover, or was it an intervention
It
or
was an intervention, yes.
it was led by someone from rehab, external therapist?
No, it's normally it is, but in
Yeah.
my case, no one came. I don't know why. My father and mother were there, and a very good aunt of mine that she married the youngest brother of my grandfather. So I think she's 78 now. She's helped me throughout all my life. She's a person that's very important for me. And she also came to do the intervention. So I respected her a lot.
Yes.
And she was there to do a bit modeling of what should happen. Not only my father's, because we had a really, really rough and complicated relationship at the time,
Yes.
of course. So she said, we have to go there. We took the train. We went to Barcelona. Every stop of the way, I think it was heartbreaking for my mother and father, because it's true that at the time I had a Revolut account, the English one, with 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. So my thought in the train was, in every stop you do in the high-speed train was, I run and I go to New Zealand or something like that was the idea in my mind, and you start a new life and you will get better. And they saw it and they felt it, because we talked about it some years afterwards. And then the train, every stop, and then I went to Barcelona and started. But I didn't start there. There I just took my addiction to a recovery or rehab center. And then it took me a lot to start my own process. What I think of it is that I need it this time. Like my brain, even if I didn't want to recover, my brain was recovering.
By being present in that environment?
Exactly. So just being there, even if you're not eager to recover or eager to change or do a transformation process, you don't have stimulus, you're in a very safe environment, you have very good professionals that are taking care of you, and that makes you better, even if you don't want to get better.
How old have you been when you went into rehab?
I was 22, more or less, when I stopped gambling. And I was there in the in-house for 4 months and a half, in-house treatment. And then I stayed in very intensive aftercare for almost 2 years.
So 4 months is quite a lengthy time.
Yeah, it is.
In today's world, most of people, they think, can I just detox in a week or two and then I'm done? What would you tell these people?
The longer, the better in general. I always say the same equation. How many years have you been in a bad place? How long do you think it can take to be in a good place? It's quite short, but it doesn't mean it's 1 week or two. It took me, I was in a very bad place for almost 7 years or 8 years. It took me less than 2 years, almost only 1 year and something, to be in a very, very transformated place. And I came from other psychiatric as well, about depression and very complicated places. So I think mental health takes time. It's not to transform yourself. It's a slow process, a slow cooking. And in general, it's whatever you need. If you need 4 weeks, it's 4 weeks. If you need more, then take more. That would be what I would say to people.
It's very individual how long this might take, or
Yes. I always joke, like I was the worst patient ever, the worst client that was in the rehab center. Uh, so I needed this time. Like I didn't do anything. I didn't follow the sessions. I didn't go to any place. I didn't want to do anything. So of course it was long because my body, my soul, my spirit needed this slow process. But there's others that come from a very functional or very well developed life finally, no? And I was a child almost, and my brain was a child in a childish place.
or maybe you also felt forced to do what you have been doing, or was it out of your personal motivation and yes, I want to do this?
No,
How does it work?
It wasn't from my personal motivation. But the strange thing is that we addicts have very strange ways of asking for help. So for months I was seeking help because I was saying to my mother that I had a relative that was in a process of recovery, and I said, "Oh, I have to be there." It was like in an aggressive and picky way, but I have to be there. I have to go there. There's not any other place I have to be. But it wasn't asking for help. It was just like saying to her that she wasn't good and what she was doing with me wasn't correct. But at the end, I was asking for help. And I find, well, I've seen a lot of ways that addicts ask for help, and some of them are so strange and funny even because you just take a look and say, is this the way you ask for help? It's very difficult for an addict to ask for help. So the motivation is something that gets lost in the process. And trying to find an addict to say, I need to be there, I really need this, it happens sometimes, but it's not that common.
And always trying to find excuses to get out of the pain you are in that moment, possibly as well.
For you, it's your medicine. Finally, it's what makes you feel better. So they're asking you to give up with the only thing that is helping you, more or less, in a very complicated and horrifying way. For me, the metaphor is if you have a room, your life is the room, and it's illuminated by some lamps, and addiction starts smashing all the lamps. Family, no color anymore, no light there. Social environment, friends, profound relationships and connections, out, dark again. Work, company, also work or professional career, it also goes dark. And at the end, you find yourself in a room where the only thing that's lightened up is addiction. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to the only safe place inside the room. That is your addiction.
It sounds to me it's addiction to addiction at some point.
Yeah, exactly. It's addiction to addiction. I like the sentence. It is.
When you started the process, often I hear and I see also with some of our patients, it's kind of they try and then stop again. They try, they stop again, or they finish a program and then the term relapse comes into play. Is this part of a process? Is it better to stay, let's say, 4, 5, 6 months in the rehab, or do a month or two and then integrate and then work on the process? The differences, do you see any?
I see differences. I think the world is going more to letting the person like feel the changes they need, and I think that's a good thing in some way. It's true that relapse prevention therapists, we are a bit biased in this because we are addicts, so we know the amount of suffering that there is in a relapse, and the amount of knowledge is there as well. Like you learn from relapse, but we never know at 100% certainty if there is more to the acknowledgement of things or to the suffering. So we are in general more against relapse, like trying to avoid relapse is our job finally. So we prefer to avoid relapse. But if relapse happens, you don't have any other option but to learn from it and start in that grounding point and go forward.
No blame, no guilt,
No,
no shame.
that's something that happened when I recovered. It's a way to put a lot of fear in the addict, and it's also it avoids some relapses. It's true, but it's not a methodology that works in the long term. Because then you have to work on the fear that the same recovery has put inside you, and so it's a bit traumatic as well. So it has to be very responsible, very firm that relapse is not a place to go. But I think that if it happens, you cannot just put blame on the person that's in a dark place, because then you wouldn't be a good professional.
I understand if you would do this or say put blame on others, but how was it for you on yourself? How did you feel with guilt and shame and
I was
all these
very, very
feelings?
ashamed of myself. Very, very ashamed of myself. It didn't have to do with the recovery process. It had to do with what I did with my life, with where my dignity finished, what limits I crossed, and that I knew I crossed, and that I had to live with them for the rest of my life. I'm still not proud now of what I did. Some of the things were very undignifying, but I accept them now. I forgave myself, no? But I was really ashamed. It took me a lot to speak about very deep guilt and profound, shameful things that addiction led me to. It took me maybe 2 or 3 months to do that. And I did two sessions of talking therapy every day. And even though I was resistant, I didn't want to give up with that, because I thought no one was going to accept what I did. No one was able to take that information and do not be judgmental about it, or do not think that this person is a pervert, he's sick, he's more than an addict. He has other things that are not, that we cannot fix. I thought I was not, there was no one that could help me get fixed.
I love what you just said. You were feeling shame. Shame is always like towards others and what others think about you. But the moment you started to be more self-compassionate and forgive yourself, this is where the real healing process has started, probably.
Yeah, I started thinking, I'm here. I'm here. This is what I have. This is my reality. This is where I have to start working. And I saw others as well that were in the same situation as me. So I wasn't alone. Other people have felt shame about their actions through their process, and they are getting better. Why can't I? I also started trusting. And I think to forgive yourself, you have to trust others with your reality. So I was I had no trust in anyone. No one in my life knew my reality in the big picture.
You were hiding it as well
Yeah, I
from
was
others.
hiding it to everyone, friends, family, siblings, everyone. So now I was more transparent. Things started to get lighter. The weight of the guilt, the weight of the shame, every session after every session and another session started to drown and to get lighter. So I was able to move more because now I didn't have that ton in my back, because I felt emotions in my back, but they was all over the place. So, and I started moving and taking care of myself and trusting my therapists and the people that were helping me. And reality started to get lighter as well. So I started seeing things that weren't there before. So I appreciating things like a hike, doing trekking somewhere in the mountains in Barcelona. Uh, some things that I didn't have access to before and during for many years. And that's where I said, okay, this is a path where I can that I can follow, and maybe it's good for me.
So it started with trust
Yes,
and showing vulnerability
yes,
and do the work with a therapist, not to hiding what your feelings, your emotions, your actions have been doing. I feel many people just hide their feelings and they are not open about what they think, what they do, and this leads to a lot of pain, not just in the term of addiction, but also all over mental health on the full scale.
yes. I think we have really poor emotional education and management in general, and throughout any society we know. So people tend to think that being vulnerable is something that's gonna make you weaker. That's the collective imagination we have. And finally, not being transparent and honest with what you need leads to not knowing how to put limits to yourself and to others, not knowing how to manage situations that maybe you don't want in your life, but you accept because you cannot manage them and say what you feel or what you think about them. And you find yourself just passing by without having contact with your real needs, your real wishes, your real desires, uh, and that's a very sad picture for us.
It's kind of we feel sometimes like isolated within ourselves, not connected with others, and not feeling the need to, or not just feeling, maybe feeling the need to communicate with others, but don't have the options to communicate with others. And today's society, more and more treatment or therapists become our former, maybe in ancient times, like sitting in a circle within a family, friends, or the tribe, and express ourselves.
Yes, I always recommend when they finish the recovery, any client, I always recommend now you have to use your family, your friends to do the same thing you've done with us, like being open, being transparent. There's some people that don't have access to it, and it's quite sad. It's also connectivity, the famous connectivity. We are connected to everyone, but disconnected finally. At the end, I have plenty of friends in Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or plenty of people I follow, but do I really know them? Would they call me on a Saturday morning? Real human connections cannot be differently as before. I think before we had real human connections, at least when I was little, we were in family gatherings. There was 35. I come from a really huge family. I have 34 cousins. So it was very nice, no, to be connected with people and to be there present. Now, technology hasn't helped much with everything. We are in a society that thinks that connection can be done through a laptop, through a phone, and it's not real because our brain doesn't work that way. It's just like that. So we can try to find the same thing in a screen, but it's not going to happen.
What is real connection? You know, we always talk about
Yeah.
connection. Is it just by sitting with each other and tell each other stories? What is real connection?
I think the stories are something powerful in our society. Even you can go back to ancient mythologies, where what you had between one generation and another were the narrative of what they have seen in the gods or or heroes of their past. And telling stories, it is something that is healing, because our brain works in some ways through narratives. We tell a story to ourselves about what our life is, or what we have done on a Monday morning. We have to tell a story to ourselves to justify what we've done and to build also the story we want to live in the future as well from the present we are in. So stories help us acknowledge a lot of things. Sometimes I talk with my clients with stories, with real stories from my life, from others' life, because we can apprehend that and they can make us change things. So I think real connection is being present with someone without the need of a transactional thing. So maybe we go to a meeting, but we're seeking something from the other person. Maybe we go to see a family relative, but we need a loan. So we're going there just to find. That's very transactional. I think we've gone into a transactional mode. That's not very nice in general.
I think stories are very powerful. They change how we think about ourselves. So we learn from those stories, but also when we tell stories to others, we kind of expect or get empathy to what we are telling or what we are saying, or so whether we reflect or we get this empathy. And I believe this gives us the feeling of being connected with each other.
It's impressive how when you come to someone with a very complicated story in your mind and you just put it out to the scenario with that person, I'm not going to say 100% of the cases because you never know, but in general, that person is going to receive it and it's not going to judge you. He's not going to be critical with you. If you come from your emotion, in general, everyone is going to receive it well and they're going to help you and they're going to make you rewrite the story that maybe is harming you in that moment. But if you look it from another perspective, then maybe it's not that harmful. And they can give you another place to look. Sometimes we get very fixed on an idea or a thought, and that's only a way of looking to your reality. In my case, to my reality, I could look at it from guilt, from shame, from what I've done, and be there for the rest of my life, just pursuing more addiction and putting more complicated things in my life. Or I just started looking from a more mental health problem and distress everything and have a new perspective to it. And that healed me. So I think it heals everyone finally.
When we talk about connection, how was your connection to your sister?
It was very, very strong at the end. We were 4 years difference. She was older than me, and she always told me we always wanted to do like a music group together. So
A band.
a band, yeah, a band, and she always said to me, "Okay, we're doing the band, but you're not singing because I'm a terrible singer." So she was the one singing. She was a very beautiful person. It could seem that sometimes if you are in those places where finally this happens and someone takes her life, you could be in a very bad place in general. But she was a very, very beautiful human being. And I loved her very much. And the last 2 years, we were very connected. We were the blondies. We were 4 siblings, the blondies and the blackies, the black-haired. So we were the blondies. We were very much alike in general. I was even with her watching a film the day before everything happened. The film was Say Yes. So it was a character that said no to everything. And he had a little gamble with another person that he had to say yes to everything that came across him. So it was very funny story about starting dating people from other countries, starting music, guitar classes, going parachuting. So it was a very, very good film we saw the day before. When the news came, I thought that my grandfather was the one that died because my father came to take me from high school. So I thought something is going on, but I never thought that this was what was going on.
I cannot imagine how far someone needs to be to get into such a situation. Um, how was it for her? Do you know? Did you know that something is not going well as a brother? How was it
Uh,
for you?
I didn't know anything at the time. Afterwards, I found out that she had been in a very bad place 3 years before.
Mhm.
Uh, Depression. She had very like high episodes where she did a lot of things, and very low episodes where she couldn't cope with anything. But I think that it's a question that will never be answered to me.
Mm.
Um, I found to accept that this is what I have to live with, and that she is in a better place. I also strongly feel that, and that also helps me cope with it. But the answer to the question of what was happening, my mother was more aware of her situation, but in the time I wasn't aware of anything. She told me the days before she had a problem that she couldn't speak about. And I thought in my mind of a 17-year-old boy that she had a boyfriend issue or yeah, something like that. That she was flirting with a boy at that time, with a man, and I thought she was going to talk to me about this. But this was a thing she told me 4 or 5 days before this happened. I insisted her that to tell me what's going on, but from a very friendly and easy and calm way, not thinking that maybe what her trouble was was that she wasn't able to continue.
What did it cause in you personally?
I went into shock. I didn't grasp reality from that day onwards until I started recovering. So I entered in a very bad state where I felt I even I even did things that emotionally are totally out of place. I laughed. I was like in a social mode with people that came from all around the world to the funeral of my sister. That's some of the things that afterwards, when I started my process, were very difficult as well, because how can you react this way? What I came to understand, and it's still struggle because I still struggle with this particular thing in my life, is that you react the way you can. And I just reacted the way I could at the time. I couldn't do anything differently. It was too much for me. I was already starting to be in addiction, active addiction, and this was just a huge trigger that came to collapse my reality.
Was this also part of the motivation to your calling to work in mental health?
Yeah, I think so. It is. It is for sure. I think that I've been struggling with my mental health for many years, so I understand what it is to struggle with it. And when they called me to start working in this, because it wasn't looked for. I was planning on starting in Barcelona, not in the islands. And then, well, for love, I came to the island. I was already thinking to abandon my job at the business school. I was doing as an ethics professor there, and starting to form myself and work in this. And yes, it's when you see someone change, it's something that's so it's something very difficult to explain. How you feel as a professional when someone takes the reins of his life and starts to change and starts to see that there's other ways of managing their reality, and they're less harmful and less painful, and yes, I I started because I thought maybe I can help others.
What do you do today working with clients? What type of clients and how do you work with them exactly?
I have many type of clients. The youngest one has barely 18, and he started with us with 16 years, so very, very young. He's in a very good place right now. And my eldest client has 82. So, in very different scopes from social places, socioeconomic background, very differently. All of them are in an addiction problem because that's my specialty and that's what I
Yes.
do. That's my expertise. So I do relapse prevention therapies. I do group relapse prevention therapies, and I do also individual sessions with clients. Well, there's a different approach to both. So when I start working with a client, I also asked him where he is and what is his reality. My work is also to dimension that reality, because sometimes with addiction, we dimension very little of the reality because we are in a self-cheating mode. So we're minimizing the truth about ourselves. So I help them find the way to get to that reality and to dimension their life and what it was in active addiction. I also give them the tools to not get dragged into relapse. So there's plenty of tools to, if you have a craving, that would be the first symptom of addiction, start of relapse. There's a lot of tools to divert yourself and change your mind, your thoughts, your feelings to avoid a relapse and then continue and try another day without using, because that's important. Cravings are something that are very physical sometimes or very mental. So they're in the cognitive process only. Either way, you have to give tools from cognitive side and also from emotional side to avoid the client to get into the process of relapse.
You mentioned group therapy and individual therapies. When would you see group therapy versus individual treatment more beneficial, and what are the differences?
There's two differences. One is economical as well. And the other one is the type of reach and personalized treatment you're going to do. Group therapy has strong skills if it's well managed, but it's also very dangerous if it's not well managed. So it can create big mirror effect. So people feel identified with others, and that can boost the process forward. It can also be very good to regulate energy and to feel that others are also in the same boat of recovery as you are. You're
I'm
not
not
alone.
alone, so there are
Yeah,
others
there are
struggling
others
as well.
doing and struggling as well with the same issues, because normally recovery, it's not always the same, but you more or less have some general topics that you're going to get into throughout the process. Um, so it also helps emotional regulation throughout the persons around you. For example, I had a group therapy the other day. There was a person that didn't even speak throughout the 2 hours of group therapy, but you just saw how her face was changing. So she was very tight, anxious, nervous, tensioned. And then she started laughing a bit about some of the stories that others were saying. And then at the end, she felt totally distressed and okay and emotionally regulated, and she didn't speak a word,
Yeah.
and that's very interesting. If it's badly managed, then you create a lot of tension and resistance from the clients. So because they can like feel confronted, or they can feel ashamed of talking about themselves in front of others. And that is also something you have to take very much into account when you do a group therapy. You cannot just let it be. There has to be a moderator that knows how it works, because there's also personal things between them because they're recovering together. So, well, we're humans, and living together is something difficult. So that's also something that has to be managed and is also dangerous. Individual sessions, you can get to the point. You can get to the person much easier, in a much easier way. And also you can personalize between any person you find, any addiction you're tackling. So that can give more personalized, more real tools to the person, and also she or he can feel more listened to. Also the place for some persons that are very social, a group therapy is something very good for them. A person that by base of personality traits is very shy or not very social or not very open to others, it can be struggling for them.
Well, could it be also triggering being in a group setting? Because if I think about the type of clients we get at the Balance, they may have also multiple issues at the same time. It's not just the addiction, the substance issue, the detox from. It's also about trauma or anxieties, and maybe something you would say in a group or facilitator would do it wrong. It may trigger me, affect me more badly.
Could. It happens. Not it could. It happens in general. Like you go to a group therapy, and other clients are also open to talk about whatever you put in the group. So it can be triggering for you. That's why a very good moderator and professional has to be in those groups, and they have to be small by size. Like I never recommend more than 10 people
Yes.
inside a group. But it's also true that it can let out some other things if you don't work on them in the meantime or afterwards. So I think it has to be a holistic approach. It has to be multidisciplinary, we could say also. It has to be looking at from different perspectives.
Yes.
Because mental health is very, very difficult. So we all know our things well, but we know our things only. So we cannot go into what a psychiatrist would do, because that's not my area of expertise. And sometimes professionals, we tend to get overexcited and maybe try to think about things that are in our part, and that's something that can be difficult for the client. Finally, that's the only interest.
It's very important in that case that a moderator within a group setting knows each one individually and know how to guide the conversations, where to intervene, where to direct or redirect the conversations in a group setting.
Yes, it is. And with addiction, because I do relapse prevention group therapies, it's much more important, because energy, if not, can get totally out of control. So you have to be very grounding. You have to put the energy where it is. If it's too low, you have to motivate a bit and do a more motivational therapy. If it's too high, you also have to calm down and easy and ground a bit the energy that's going around.
Yeah.
And you have to know who to feel the energy that is in each person that's going to the group therapy. So maybe someone comes from a personal problem that has happened that morning, and she's totally resistant and doesn't want to speak about it. And maybe it's not the time. So you just let it be. And the energy, if it's a good energy, and that's your responsibility, the moderator or professional, even if she keeps tensioned, the being there, present, even in other stories, is also helpful to get out of your own emotion and give a little bit of distance and perspective to it. So it has to be I only recommend group therapies if it's very, very well managed.
Yeah. Let's dive into your type of work, therapy sessions you do during treatment and during a residential program treatment and after. And especially, let's start with the residential part. I can imagine that the first part is about building the trust and the connection we have been talking about, and then before they leave is is also to set off and prepare them properly for the time after. How are the sessions, and what do you do in your work?
In the first sessions, it's always about bond because sometimes it's true I'm quite young. So, for example, I have clients sometimes are biased by the type of person they have in front. It's like that. We're humans. So if you're, for example, a man of 50 something that have a high profile life, and you're sitting in front of a 30 lot person that's talking to you about what tools you should acquire to be better in the future, there can be a huge resistance there because you enter into competition and you have to overcome that. And that's the beginning. I had a client recently that was the first part because we had tension there. He didn't accept or validate what I was saying, and me as a therapist. And that's something that it happens to me. It has happened to me a lot of times. So I'm getting used to it, but it's not easy for anyone to do that and to cross that line. When you establish the bond, then you start working. And you start working on that client, on the person, on who are you? What are you doing here? Why are we sitting here today? What do you need from me? So you try to put the ball on the client, so he's the one that is getting himself motivated to start opening. If you do it from a more directive perspective, that's also a possibility, and relapse prevention is quite usual, then you're just putting a lot of energy yourself, but maybe not generating energy in the client or self-intrinsic motivation. And that is dangerous because then you take out that extrinsic motivation, and the client lives without tools and without being motivated himself for change. So it's important to leave the client to be the one to get knowing what things are happening inside him. And they do finally. If you let them, they do, because they are in a very nice environment. They are very well taken care of, and they have a lot of silence. And silence is something totally needed for changes. So when you have all this silence, when your life is plenty of stimulus or things, you just continue with it. You drive yourself by the next meeting, by the next conference call, by the next thing you have to do. When you stop and all of this suddenly is not there, then maybe you have the capacity and capability of taking a look to yourself and seeing what's there. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it, but maybe you can start working on it.
It's kind of a bubble, so everyone can function well in a bubble somewhere on an island, vacation, no triggers available. But the time will end eventually, and they will transition into a world where the triggers are around, at home, at work, within the colleagues, within the social environment they have been interacting with. Now there would the work really start. How do you prepare someone for these incidences or what's coming after?
I recommend, at least for the first several months, protection in general. From relapse prevention theory, protection is the best strategy in general. So do I have to go to this company party where there's going to be a lot of alcohol and a lot of people using, or maybe I know this from work that he goes and uses. It's the best strategy for sure is not showing up.
To avoid.
That's the best strategy. If avoidance is not possible, because sometimes you just have to go because you're the owner of the company, so having a company party without the owner, it's a bit difficult. Then you have to create strategies of having ways out. That means I know I'm going to be there. I set up time I get there. I set up time I go out. I have a car in case I have to leave. I have a car prepared and I leave. And because sometimes even if you think you're ready to confront some things, Then you get to the place itself, and you start feeling very nervous, very craved, very anxious. So you just want to leave. And for the first 6 to 12 months, it's better not to put too much pressure on yourself, and be easy if you have to not go to a place, not show up, and have strategies to plan. Because finally, the survival mechanism that addiction is going to be present when there's options, when there's opportunities. When there's no option and there's no opportunity, it's very difficult for the survival mechanism to come in. So if you know you're going to go at 5 and leave at 7, and there's someone in the party that's your partner that knows the process you're doing, you're totally fine and safe. If I'll go at 5 and then I'll come whenever I feel like, then you're leaving yourself to a lot of different decision-making and possibilities. And that's when addiction comes in, and comes in hardly. So the first months, it's better to plan yourself a lot, to have a very tight schedule, to know what you're doing and when. So your thoughts and your cravings are much, much less in general.
You need to have the awareness that there might be a risk of falling back. And this is kind of, I see this often where people think, yeah, when I'm detoxed, now I feel good. I'm in a great place. Thank you for saving my life. And everything is great now. And I'm ready to go back home, and I feel full of power. But that's kind of a difficult stage if they are not realizing I need to continue my work.
Work, if you want to recover, for me, at least is 12 months of work, of hard work in your recovery and transformation process. It doesn't mean that you have to be in-house or treatment for 12 months. It means that you have to do aftercare when you finish your process here. There's also a very interesting part of the recovery process that a lot of addicts have. It normally comes between the month 1, 2, or 3. They go into the pink cloud, we call. So there's like a huge dopamine boost because of recovery. So it's like you get a bit of addiction to recovery. And so they feel really well, doing everything really, but they're not in a normal state as well. So, and then the problem is when they go down from the cloud, the pink cloud, they crash, and then they don't know how to manage themselves. So it's important to continue. There's a lot of curves around the way. There's a lot of things that are going to happen. You don't know. I don't know. We cannot acknowledge the future. But being supported by someone is something it's a huge guarantee, finally. Like, why would I risk it? That's a question I try that my clients pose themselves. What would I risk just going back and doing this amazing treatment for 1 month, 2 months, and then going back and not having any help and risk myself?
No safety net.
No safety net. It doesn't make much sense. So I try the clients to pose their question that, why would I do this alone? Why? For what reason? And that's where sometimes you find out that there's also a bit of too much certainty, too much self-assurance about that things are going to go well. And it's still complicated. Even if you've been clean for 8 weeks or 6 weeks, you still have a lot of work to do. We all have a lot of work to do in general.
I've also seen some of clients coming for rehab for addiction to leave and transform from one addiction to another, like overtraining, sport, whatever. What cases have you seen in your career?
I've seen many of those cases, and sports is the great substitute for the addicts because it's very healthy, finally. So who can tell anyone that doing 4 or 5 hours of body work or training?
To a certain degree.
Yeah, I know. But in general, that's why they feel better. They create a lot of endorphins and dopamine as well when they train. And we had a client that then came to do ultra trails and 180 kilometers careers. He was one of the best in the country. It's just going from one adrenaline rush to another adrenaline rush. It's not living your life in any balance, really, because you're not fixing the system. You're just putting another corner to it and trying to reduce damage, we call. And it's true that's better. It's better to do training than to use cocaine. It's better for your system, organically, for your family, for your money account. It's better. But it doesn't mean that you're healing. It only means that you're changing the place where you crave. And what you use to regulate you emotionally, instead of crossing emotions and feeling them, you go 2 hours to a mountain and run for until you damage yourself.
Yeah.
We had a lot of relapses of people that substituted any addiction with sports or training when they injure themselves. So your knee doesn't work, you can't run anymore. What are you going to do? Where are the tools?
You get back.
Yes, and you go back to the same place you were. That's why there's a lot of difference between the word, and it's quite from old school, but it's nevertheless, it's true, abstinence and recovery. Abstinence, it means you're not using anything. Recovery means that you're healing your brain. You're changing the neuronal paths that you use, and you're changing the way you look at the world. So that's transformative. This is only a lottery ticket for the same place in the future.
What would be an ideal process of therapy or treatment now, working for years in this field?
I think there is no, like, you have to look at the client and think, what does he need? I think in general, if we have to put a process, it would be perfect to have very individual sessions mixed with group therapies, because it gives the best of both. So you still have the individualized talking therapist or psychotherapist or psychiatrist that can give you the place and the safe place to talk about things that maybe the group cannot manage because they're too yours, or they wouldn't be seen the way you would like to, or you feel you're not opened enough in that time. And mixing both, I think, in a motivational and identification way would be the best. Old school also was a lot about confrontative therapy. And it's very difficult. I've done confrontative therapy, and it's something that you have to be really sure where you're standing if you do that, because if not, you're going to damage the client. And it has only to be used in very, very concrete and very extreme scenarios, I think, where you see that the client is just leading himself to relapse directly, and relapse could be something that there's no way out. Because sometimes the problem is that there's a point where the brain maybe has no cognitive adherence anymore to go back to recovery. So there's people that cannot recover because they've gone too far in addiction, and there's a turning point where maybe, you never know, I've seen miracles, but maybe the brain cannot have the capability of recovering, and that's dangerous.
What are the differences of treating, let's say, younger patients versus older patients, like an adolescent brain? Is it working the same like an older 30, 40, 50 plus year-old brain?
It's not the same. So recovery treatments for people that are older are normally shorter, because if you've come through your life being able to manage things more or less, even if you have to cope with an addiction, it means that you have some executive functions that are okay. So you are able to do things. The prefrontal brain is not that damaged, or it's more developed than for a teenager that has no reference to life. So he doesn't know how to manage himself in any situation, not work, not social, not friends. So the difference is about the capacity of acknowledging the changes and being able to to grow them inside you. So it takes much longer for someone young. So we always say to the clients, you have a double problem. You're an addict, but you're also young. So that's a difficult clash.
So it's easier to recover from an addiction if you have developed it for a short period of time if you're older.
It is easier. The treatment is easier.
Yeah. Because you can maybe access more emotional regulation techniques because life, what you're mentioning,
Yes.
has brought you
Finally,
there.
we all humans do a lot of emotional regulation, even if we're not aware of it. So when your body demands yourself to stretch, it's because something is asking you to undo an emotion that maybe is in the back because of what you've done for the last 2 hours. If you're uncomfortable in a situation, then you leave or you do something about it or you manage it. Those are all emotional tools. We're just not aware of them, but we've been using them all our lives. Even if we don't know what they are or we don't know why we do them, no? Or moving your fingers or trying to grasp something in the hand. Those are emotional regulating tools,
Yeah.
and people develop them.
What about the time? Is the time relevant for a successful recovery if you have been using for 2 years and now going into treatment, or if you have been using for 30 years and then going into treatment?
The quantity, the timing is, I think, my feeling, and this is less technical and more intuitive, is that your timing is your timing. So it means that if you are an alcoholic, you develop a very long addiction. So you start drinking at 17 and maybe you go into recovery when you're 60. But if they come to you and they say, when you were 35 and some symptoms started to arise, they would tell you, you need recovery. You would say, no, I don't need. So we all come at the time that's meant to be for us, I think.
When you look at the lengths of therapy in total, you mentioned something like 12 months.
Yes.
Is like a bulk timing. It sounds a lot for many people.
What I mean is that is what the time that the brain gets to recover itself. It comes from 12 months, depending on the use and the substance. So alcoholics will take 12 months. And maybe if you take benzodiazepines, it will take 24. If you have that addiction. Cocaine methamphetamines would be in the middle, between 16 and 18 months. What that means is that your brain is going to shape differently and you're going to have the ability to have cravings for that long. And those cravings, if you don't have the help you need, maybe it's going to make you take some decisions that finally are going to get you to the relapse. So they've done tomographies in brains and they've seen that if you are a cocaine user, after 18 months without using, your brain is no different from whoever's sitting next to you.
Does it mean after 18 months or maximum 24 months, I'm healed forever? And, the state of being in recovery, what does it mean? And can I then start drinking socially or consume socially? Many would ask that.
I come from where they think that these neuronal paths are always broken. So it means that if you start using again, you're just going to develop again the same problem and you're going to start getting yourself into very bad places. When you recover and you do a full recovery, you don't want to drink socially anymore. You don't want to use socially anymore. It's not that you can't, because you can always. The decision is always of the person, of the client. They can always do it. It means that you've reached such a good place that you wouldn't risk it for anything. You wouldn't, for example, if tomorrow they come to me and they say, well, you know what, Jacob, we're wrong. We were wrong. We've done the studies with your DNA in your brain. you have the dopamine system is perfect. You are you are not an addict.
You could use again.
You could use again. I think you wouldn't find me in the bar the next day.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen. Because I'm not gonna risk, like, you just stop using. It's just one part. Then you start growing and things start to get better. And I wouldn't risk it. I wouldn't risk it. The brain is no different when you get to 1.5 years or 2, but you still have to take care of yourself in the future, because finally, what we talked before, when you have less tolerance to certain emotions and you cope not that well with frustration or pain or other things, then you have to have a life with not that many suffering in general. And that is important for an addict. We are vulnerable, finally.
There are differences between the substances you use. Of course, alcohol you can just get everywhere around the corner. For gambling, you need money. For cocaine, you need more
Yes.
money as well to buy. It's more expensive drug. But if you don't have money, you cannot go and gamble.
No.
What's the effect of having sufficient money in terms of your recovery process?
It doesn't help at the end. If you have a lot of money, limits are to be crossed can be higher. So finally, if you have a lot of limitations from the money side, you cannot use whenever you want, whatever you want, the quantity you want. So money is going to be a big driver of not recovering finally, because you're always going to have access to whatever you want or need. So putting limits on yourself for an addict is a very difficult thing to do. So I'm not going to do this, but there's part of you that wants to. It's not only the part that says you have to recover, you're in a bad place.
Yes.
So money is a very difficult thing for an addict. If you have a lot of money, and some clients that we have are in a very wealthy position, it's not a guarantee for anything.
Can be even worse on your situation.
It can be worse on the situation. It can make the situation go faster to a very worse place. Because if this is the mental health problem that goes with the word more, always more, never enough, imagine if more means almost infinite.
Yeah.
If never enough means you can have whatever you want because you have the access. Finally, we live in a world that works with money, and whatever money can buy, unfortunately, it can be bought. So that puts yourself in very, very complicated places.
In today's world and society, it's becoming more and more available to get mental health treatment. Do you see that happening around your network circle and the people you've been working with?
I went to a dinner 2 weeks ago in Madrid. We were 7 people, 3 couples and I, and 5 of those 6 persons were going to a psychotherapist, not related to addiction, to other mental problems, and they were openly talking about it. Well, I'm also surrounded by people that are maybe more in this mode than others, but I found it quite impressive. So I think the world is changing. Finally, we are one of the most important topics on the table. We've been there a long time. They just haven't acknowledged us until recently. And they're seeing that it's affecting productivity. It's affecting the way people work. It's affecting, a lot of the suicidal is one of the first death rates we have in Spain, I think, or in other countries. People are getting a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. So it means that it is a problem. Why is it a problem? Because we haven't taken care of this throughout any generation in general, and now We have to cope with a much faster world that we cannot grasp entirely. So it means that we are not prepared for this, for what happened, and people are feeling it, and they want to take care of it. And it's important to do things as the one you do, to put the word out there that we are here.
Yeah.
There are people that are doing this, that are helping others. We reach as many as we can. It's not enough. That's also true. But we can reach them, and they can reach us, I imagine.
And to hear stories like yours, to see they are not alone in whatever their situation is. What would you recommend to them how can they reach out or get help out there? Are there any tools, information, books you like to go to?
Each country is different, so I think you have to go, start near, if you can, to see what's out there for you, if it's possible. And also look for, there's a lot of people now that are getting a lot of books of neuroscience, of how things work, even apps that are coming out that you can start to have some knowledge about what mental health is, how it works, how you work, finally, because each person is a universe. And start by there, looking just the nearer you can, and the place you can ask there, and then start. Maybe it's a starting point of a very, very nice process and transformation for you.
So get somehow the willingness to learn and understand, and maybe to open up and speak as a second step.
Yes, it is for sure. But I think we all need it. It's like, I don't understand people that deny, for example, no, that deny they have mental health or not. You can have good mental health in the moment you can have a very balanced one, but it doesn't mean that you're out of the equation. It's just part of who we are. We have organic failure, we have mental failure. We can have a heart arrhythmia, and we can have a depression. It's just part of how humans are, and we cannot just deny it on a basis. It doesn't. I'm still impressed with people who do, but I also understand that I was there before, so I understand that people that cannot cope with that they have an emotional system, that they feel, and they don't want to know that they feel. Just want to go by and continue with their lives without taking any attentions to themselves. It's a bad strategy, but a lot of people do it that way.
Life is not a one-way street, certainly, and we all go through ups and downs. Hopefully, it's needed for our personal growth and development, and to learn about life and become better person and experience life by itself. So you have been doing a lot of work with your clients and patients. What were like the biggest transformations you have seen people have gone through?
If I can recall now, I had a person that was in a very bad psychiatric state. There was addiction behind, but the psychiatric state was very demanding. It was like, if I have to explain in words, if he couldn't have access to reality. So he knew, and he was conscious of how that was happening, but he couldn't control any of his thoughts. And just, it was like a blasting and bomb of thoughts all day, all the time, that he couldn't stop and he couldn't get into control. So he was just in a position of staying put and without moving. He came to the sessions, and he was, we thought we were losing him from a mental part, so that the brain would never come back, so that the brain would just be a distance between him and what he can acknowledge and the reality he was living in. He started to do the program bit by bit. So it was a very tailored one. It had to be very slow because he couldn't feel any pressure. Pressure could have destabilized him much more. And it had to be very little by little. Then 1 week after another, he started talking. So he didn't even talk much. And in that state, he started talking. He started connecting himself a bit. So thoughts weren't permanent always. And then he started being able to do more sessions. And we're talking about not the talking sessions, but more, training, physical work, yoga, meditation. Those are also very important tools for any recovery. And so that started a more positive cycle. Of course, there was a lot of psychiatric medication as well, pharmacology, because it was needed by a psychiatrist. And then in 3, 4, 5 months, he started to be in a very different place. And we started to see the essence of the person, the essence that wasn't there before. This person even started biking, and I think he did 100 kilometers biking. Some days he recovered his job, his daily job, and he started relating. He even went to live with his mother, that's very old, and taking care of her. So someone that wasn't present at all in his life or life of others related to him, he was one of the brothers that is taking care of the mother. He's the main one. The sisters also do things, but he's the main one that's taking care of her mother.
So yeah, beautiful to see like a big transformation where psychiatric and addiction was involved in this case. What do you, Jacobo, do in your daily life to stay in balance?
I think our industry or our sector or where we work is a very demanding one. So it's very important for anyone who works in this field to be also aware of their own mental health, because sometimes you are helping others and you forget yourself. So normally what I do is 2 or 3 times a week, I do an intensive physical training. I do yoga and meditation. I try to stay connected socially with friends, family, and do things with them. So I'm from Madrid, so from time to time I go to the island. I have a brother in the States, so I try to go and visit him. And also I take care of my place, my house, my own things. So I think there's many tools. I've done a lot of things in the past years. Now I have my own very tailored tools that serve me and that maybe don't take that much time that I had before when I was more with myself and less towards others. But also cold showers, for example. That's a thing I do every morning for 1 minute. I put the heat in the coldest part of the shower, and that is also calming the nervous system a lot. So you can start fresh the day. Yes, but I try to take care of myself, because if not, burnout is also common in our industry.
What do you suggest to everyone in the world who's listening out there?
Don't hesitate to seek for help if you need it. It's going to be the best step you're ever going to do if you go for it.
Thank you. And thank you very much for all the work you do at the Balance, but also beyond. I think it's very, very important to be the light for people in need, and make them aware also that they are in need, what they need. Thank you very much, Jacobo, and thank you for the conversation and being so open today.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.